Right on, writers. Welcome, first-time viewers, to the Books by Adrian author platform. This is Typewriters Podcast, a follow-up after show type deal for the live stream Sunday guest of the week. Today's episode will be with the awesome Helen Garraway. I am your host, Adrian Santiago. If this is your first time with us, like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Even if it's not your first time with us, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. It's very important. It helps us out. And be sure to hit on the notification bell so you know when the videos go up, when the live shows start up, all that good stuff, and you don't miss a beat. Okay, so I don't want to dawdle. Let's go ahead and bring out our honored guest, Miss Helen Garraway.
Hi.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So Livestream Sunday flew by. It doesn't usually do that. It just kind of whizzed right by for us today.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I thought that it went rather well. I had a good time. It was fun.
It was fun. Yeah. So I can talk books. I can just talk books forever.
Yeah. Likewise, man. Like that. I feel like this is perfect for what I'm trying
this
to do.
this type of event. Yes, it helps. Yeah.
It certainly does. So, because it flew by, we have still a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you during the interview. We're going to get to those. We're going to kick them off, though, with one question from the chat that we didn't get to because we ran out of time. So let me throw it up here first and foremost for you. Aphrodite Lee asks, would you collaborate on a book with another author?
I wouldn't say no, though I would say it's probably a very different experience writing with a different author. I think you'd have to be very clear about what you were going to do and what the other author was going to do. And I suppose it all depends on the author and what you're both bringing to the book.
Styles.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say no, but I don't have any plans at the moment.
You know, one of my favorite books is Good Omens, and it was written by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. And when you talk to them about the process of writing that book in interviews, they would often say the same thing, which was they don't remember who wrote what, because their whole process was one would write a bunch of stuff and send it to the other guy, and he would go to sleep, and then the other guy would get it and like write a bunch of stuff, rewrite everything that he wrote his own way, add a little more, send it back, and then he would rewrite everything and write a little more and send
just
it back.
Keeps going.
And it just kept going, and they never like actually defined anything together. They just kept sending it back and forth until there was a book in front of them, and they published it. So there's any number of different ways that two minds can come together to make a thing together. You just have to make sure that you're
clear what your objectives are.
Because in their case, the freedom to do whatever was their process,
but somebody else could get really offended that you went and rewrote all of your work.
Absolutely. Me, for example, I outline flash fiction. I need structure to everything. I don't do anything without first outlining the whole thing. So yes, I would probably.
I didn't start outlining. I've grown to plan a bit more, but I'm still pretty loose, to be quite honest. I am an instinctive writer.
You wrote an entire series. It sounds like in one sitting. So I don't.
And I almost don't want to change. I almost don't want to change the way I write because I'm so comfortable writing. I almost feel like if I do then become very structured and plan everything, it just won't flow. I just won't be able to write.
Every writer does it differently, and as long as the way that you're doing it is getting results, you're getting stories out, you're happy with the stories that you're writing, then by all means, absolutely do
just
it.
Keep going. There is no wrong way. There are guidelines and suggestions. Doesn't mean you have to follow them all. You just do what's right for you.
Yeah, and part of the beauty of like learning all the rules and guidelines is figuring out how to break those rules later on down the road
when it makes sense for you.
When you've earned it as a storyteller, you can start going like, oh, but what if I do this? And you just break the whole thing, and now it's a whole other bag of worms. At what point did you decide to shift your energies into writing? I know that you started in 2016 to write the story, but I mean, what I mean to say is, when did you know that this is what you were doing now and you were going to publish books and do that? And is it building towards full-time self-published author and setting aside?
That would be the ultimate goal, yes, to be able to just write. I love it. I so wish I'd started writing earlier, but I think there's always a time and a place for everything, and obviously this was my time and place and the right time to start writing. And again, when I started doodling and putting ideas in a book, and I wasn't intending even really necessarily on writing a book, and then it just sort of kept growing, and then it became a book, and then I started really doing the research and trying to understand the world of publishing and self-publishing and figuring out what my journey should be, and really I think I wrote it for me and I published it for me, and then it just happened to be that I've got it out there and people are enjoying it too, and that's a bonus for me. I wanted to write the book and I wanted to hold it in my hand, and that was my objective to begin with. And as the series grew, then it became actually more viable for it to be actually, let's do this properly and publish as a objective to publish it, to sell it to other people as well.
Yeah. For a long time, I and my buddies, we were working on what we intended to be a big like graphic novel series, and we plotted out the entire thing together like in a writer's room, like for a TV show. We all just coming up with ideas and throwing them back, and,
brainstorming,
and putting index cards up on the wall for things that are like, oh, that's going in, and then it came to me as the writer of the group to actually turn all of
that into something,
scripts, to scripts for an artist to then turn into a comic book. And I worked on it for years, and never showed them a single one of those scripts because they were garbage. And when we got together, we had a very clear vision for what we wanted this thing to be, and I was finding myself to not be a good enough writer to accomplish that vision. And so I decided to, let me put this on the back burner. Let me write something that's just me, that's just mine.
Just get yourself going. Learn the craft.
Get to the end a couple times. So I went and I started this short story, and then the short story was like, oh man, this is more of a novel. So then that grows into the novel, and then the novel's like, well, this is really more of a trilogy if I'm really honest.
If you're honest, yeah.
And it just continues. But the difference though is that I actually see the end. I have the plot. I'm doing it well. I'm happy with the chapters that are coming out. Like it feels different because it's going to actually get published this time.
Yes.
And I'll get back to that other story eventually someday. But it's interesting how the journey again is different for everybody and yet very similar, because once you have like the traction going, all of a sudden like you can't stop it.
Yeah. And as I say, each book you learn something new, and you get quicker and you get slicker, and you know what you can do and what you need to outsource, and where you need help and where you don't. And it does get, I think it gets easier. It does get easier, and I have so many ideas bubbling that my well is still gushing away. So I'll wake up in the middle of the night with a whole book plot, and I'll just have to sit and write it all down because it'll be gone in the morning. And I've probably got about 8 different book plots in a folder, but I just haven't had the time to even go really think about it. And I've probably got 3 books that are mid-written. As I say, one's virtually done, and a couple are probably. One's probably 25%, one's 50%. But you just, when the idea comes, you have to. The dam
burst for you at some point. It feels like all of a sudden, like all this stuff just had to get out, because if you have that many projects, and I have, as you say, a folder where I have like ideas for that don't belong in this story. They'll be in a future thing later on down the line. But I don't have unfinished books waiting to be finished. You know what I mean? I just have ideas for books. I have this one book that I'm,
that's your objective.
I've gotten the first draft done, and I've sent that off to an editor, and there's the whole idea of that. And I'm looking really, really forward to diving into the second book, because it's going to be so very different from the first. So it's a whole new journey in that one. I'm so excited about all that. But it's funny, right? How like we get excited about the process of writing, even though it can be such a headache along the way, and all of this. We're almost masochists.
We are. Yes, yeah. I mean, it's even like the thought with Soulbury that we were talking earlier, and I was saying, is it a standalone or a series? And I said, no, probably going to be a series. And although I have a few ideas, the thought is that actually I don't even know what that book is going to look like. I know there's some questions that need to be answered, but that's just the bare bones. I mean, I've spent so much time getting this one finished because I'm writing to a deadline that I haven't really thought about book 2. But book 2 I can then write to my own deadline, I think as long as it's available in, I've probably written for 2023, it'll be fine, because the first one doesn't get released till October. So I have some time. It is.
Being a self-published author is not one job, it's more like 19. You're doing so many different things and learning so many different skills. The timing is another one. It all comes down to the marketing as well, you know, like how much time you're putting into like getting the ads out.
And it is so difficult to give yourself that runway, because once you've written it and got it all, you just want to get it out. But then you have to think, well, actually I need to get it out to ARC readers, and I need to get my street team lined up, and I need to start getting a bit of buzz going, and then I can launch it.
I need people to know that it's coming. Like if it just shows up, nobody knows it's coming, nobody's gonna get it. How do you manage your daily schedules to work, write, and tackle everything else? How do you organize yourself?
Well, I work full time, so the days are work, you know, so that's just non-negotiable, that's work. And then when I finish, which is often 6-7 in the evening, then after I've thrown something together for dinner, that's it, I'll be straight on the computer again. And that is a challenge. My eyes are getting very tired, is that I'm on the screen all day and I'm on the screen all night, and my eyes are getting tired. I do need to take a bit of a break, but I don't have time to take a break.
You could switch to typewriters, go old school, like Alan Moore or whatever, and just go typewriter.
Yes. And I must admit, I've started listening to audiobooks more now, so that I could rest my eyes, so that I'm not reading a book or a Kindle, and actually listening, just so that I can rest my eyes a bit, because the eye strain is becoming a bit of a challenge. Because I eat my dinner and then I'll start writing, and then it'll be on midnight, 1-2 in the morning when I stop, depending on how much into the groove you get and what you're working on, really. And until this point, then the words start dancing in front of you, and he's like, right, I can't see what I'm doing anymore, time to go to bed, you know. And then you start all over again the next day.
I usually, when I work at night, which is most times when I work at night, I, as in work on the book, I work until I get that first like nod off, you know, where this happens, and then I'm like, okay, it's time to stop.
So, because and by then you're probably writing rubbish anyway, so it's time. It won't be any good tomorrow.
Utter nonsense.
But that's another thing, though. I would always say, no matter what you write, if you cut it out of your book, stick it in I have an ideas don't fit page, folder. I just put ideas don't fit, and I just stick them in there, and you never know, one day there might be a little gem in there that you can pick up again and rework and add it into your book if you're looking for something that to fill a gap or something. So ideas are never bad, they just might not fit in your current book, and they just might not be written in the way that you need it, so don't throw them away.
Neil Gaiman calls it a scrap heap. I always call it the junkyard, but it's
I just have an ideas don't fit.
Just this place where like you can just dig through later on and be like, oh, look at this thing, this will work.
And that's that can be a whole book, on its own.
Unfold this thing in and see where that goes.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I saw that you have a section for short stories on your website. Tell us a little bit about your short stories and what folks can expect.
I entered a competition. I was just practicing writing, really. As I said, I don't really write short. My editor says that I underwrite, and I write long and I underwrite, so she always makes me add more words in, which just makes me laugh, because editors usually make me cut, and she's always making me put in whole chapters. You skipped, Helen, you need to write this, which is quite fun and quite interesting. So my book's always longer after it comes back from.
But that's a good editor. That's really good that she knows you're missing beats here. You have to fill in. It's your story is not bad. It's just actually just missing things to make it full right here. Plug those in.
Sometimes I skip too long a period, and I need to put the thing in the middle.
Little time jumps in there.
Because I'm thinking, that'd be boring. They don't need to know that. I'll just say, and a week later, and then she's saying, actually, there was an event in there that you need to write about.
See, I always try, or at least I'm trying in this series to have a time jump between books, so that every book will sort of stand alone, where the character will have memories of events that happened that the reader hasn't read yet, and that'll track for all three, so that way you don't have to have read the first one to, you know what I mean? Like there's always going to be little flashbacky things and little like anecdotes of the past, and so I always try to do a time jump, whether it's a few months or maybe even a few years between each book, and give your characters time to change a little bit, to develop a little further, and catch them a little further down the line at a new starting point. But that said, within the book, it's a straight shot. I try not to do time jumps between chapters. It's like I try to keep it flowing from like
Yeah, my
start
first
to
three
finish.
books, well, the first three books and the novella are consecutive. They're just consecutive. There aren't any time jumps in there. It's just when I skip from, I just think, oh, well, if they're journeying
Yeah.
back where they came from, we've already journeyed there. We don't need to describe the journey back, and
Yeah,
things
but
like
they
that.
fought a
And I
wolf
must
on
admit,
that journey. You got to show us the wolf fight.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, that's quite funny. I mean, even in Sentinels Across Time, my one that I just released, there was a whole chapter which was actually quite important, and I'm so glad she did point it out. Was that is that going to be a spoiler? Maybe no, maybe I won't say. Yeah, but there was a whole event that I didn't write, and I just wrote that chapter like that and put it in, and that was it.
It just
done.
came right out.
Yeah, but it should have been in there in the first place. So I mean, yes, so it's vital that you have, as I say, independent eyes to look at it and say, actually, hang on a minute, how did you get there?
I find it so surprising that for somebody who is writing so much now that you didn't do more of it before. It seems to come very naturally to you, from what I can tell.
It does now, and I absolutely love it. I mean, I was an avid reader. I mean, I just didn't have the time before to write. I was married, had a daughter. Family life took over. Plus working full time, there just wasn't the time to write or to have time for those ideas to develop, I suppose. And it wasn't until
readers make the best writers, though. The people who just read.
You've read so many books. I mean, that's why I say I'm instinctive. But I've read so many books that I understand the structure of a book subconsciously, not necessarily consciously, but I know. You introduce the characters. There's a middle bit. You've got to have a bit where everything goes wrong before you can then go right. So I don't necessarily know the right terms for it, but I just know that there are these beat points that you have to have within a book for it to be, make sense to a reader. And what I look for and what I enjoy is what I write. So,
do you have any plans to adapt Sentinel series into other mediums, animation, TV, film, anything like that?
I have no idea how to do that. That would be a whole new area for me to even investigate. I mean, as I say, I'm doing the audiobook for Sentinels Awaken, and I will work my way through all of the series. But again, it takes time and money. So I'll work my way through.
If I were to ask you what medium you think it would adapt the best to, is it best suited for like an animated series? Is it best suited for a major motion picture? Is it best suited for an hour drama? What do you think?
I would think it would be like a drama, like the Wheel of Time drama. Yeah. I would think it would be that sort of event. I mean, there's plenty in the books to put in it. I think if you put it in a movie, they have to cut it so quick down to fit into the movie that you lose a lot of what's really vital to make the story as vibrant as it is, So I would say probably a series, like a Netflix series or whatever, but I don't know. Really, for me personally, I have no experience in any of that side of the business to even know how to start that. So we'll see where that goes.
Nice. The reason I asked that is because I think I'm realizing more and more now that when I'm writing at least this novel series, whenever I'm writing it, I'm seeing it in my head like a Japanese anime. Very dynamic, very like fast, like zoom ins and like big action kind of stuff, but also like very moody lighting and weird angles and so like the way that I'm seeing it, I'm like, that's probably the best way that it's adaptable into that. And so like
for me, I think my books
unfolding like a drama in your head, that's probably the best way.
Mine's probably more character led, so you want to understand the characters and the emotions and their interactions, and very much it is a lost and found family sort of quest. Nice. So it's how everybody interacts and how they build off each other and how the intrigue develops. And I think you need something a little bit longer to be able to get all of those nuances and to be able to appreciate even the environments, to be able to build that picture that you build on top of each other and you keep building and building. Whereas, I think a movie would not be long enough.
Yeah. Now, I was originally going to ask you if you have a planned ending for the Sentinel series, but from our conversation, it sounds like even when you get to the end of the series as you have it planned right now, it's still open for you to continue on.
Yeah, as I said, I was really thinking about a science fantasy element, just because by the time I get there that the world has changed, so that opens up a whole new sort of plethora of possibilities.
Sure.
Though I've never obviously written science fiction, though I've read a lot. But it wouldn't be pure science fiction because I'm not a geeky nerd that knows all about engines and rockets
fantasy. It's a little bit.
So it's that little crossover, that it'll really be fantasy based, but it'll be into space,
Gotcha,
so you'll get
like
some of that space travel, but not necessarily the science fiction piece. I'm not going to go and develop space warp or anything like that. I don't think. Who knows? By the time I get there, who knows?
You're on the right channel. Mine is a sci-fi fantasy world. You've got your spaceships and all that kind of stuff, but you also have sort of your magic users and everything.
Yeah.
And fantasy creatures, and yet the first book is a murder mystery, so it's a little genre bendy. But so you're in perfect company. The folks that I'm trying to reach are exactly the folks that you should also be trying to reach. So what are some of your major influences? Who do you look to as sort of your mentor writers?
So I grew up on the likes of David Eddings, the Belgariad, the Malloreon series. Those are pure epic fantasy series, and Anne McCaffrey's Dragons of Perns, and and C.S. Lewis Narnia. I grew up on the true fantasy. As I got older, I went into Lois Bjord McMaster's, who did all of the Vosogian, which is obviously more science fiction, but she's also got a whole fantasy section, which is the Chalian series, which is my absolute favorite book, The Curse of the Chalian, and the Sharing Knife series. I just love those books. And then as I've progressed, I've gone into Michelle Segara, who has an epic 14, 15, 16 book series going in Cast, which is complete fantasy and has wonderful characters and cultures, and is very culture rich. And then she writes under Michelle Segara that is another completely different sort of fantasy world, but is so detailed. It's so impressive. And I think my books are detailed, just not as detailed as hers, but they are all influences. And then off the back of that, obviously, I read anything that my mum had in the house, from Dennis Wheatley, here's me saying I don't like horror, to Georgette Heyer, to, I don't know, Mary Stewart, to whomever else, it's just whatever was available, I would read. So, and I think that helps because my books, although they're epic fantasy, there are elements of mystery, there are elements of thriller, there are elements of epic battles. There's all different genres come in, don't they? So, so you need all of that anyway. So, and I think the more you read, the more you understand how the books are written and what works and what doesn't. I mean, it's quite interesting. So I just read a book. I'm not going to say who it is, but I was so excited to read it. It sounded really, really good. I loved the premise and the whole idea of it. And it was just the plot didn't work for me. I just did not understand why the characters did what they did. It just made no sense to me whatsoever. And it was like, I was so disappointed by the end of it. So that's
had so much promise. And
I just, this is absolutely up my street. I'm going to absolutely love it, and I'm just deflated. It's just so disappointing that the book just didn't make sense to me. I just couldn't see why people behave the way they are. And I think that's what you got to think about, when you get into your story, although there's an element of magical realism and, it's fantasy, there still has to be a basis of reality in there, that it's possible or it's feasible, or the world you've built explains how it's feasible, so that people can see the context, and that it's just not, she just flew across that room because she could, But it's because it's an element or an ability or a capability of that character, not just because you just made it up because you felt like it.
Yeah, and it's, you see that a lot from, first-time writers and stuff who they have ideas for cool things that they wish they could see in stories, and they unfortunately don't know that that's not enough. It's not just these cool little sequences and ideas. Like, it all has to tie together with plot and character and all that. And so it's that sucks, because especially when the world is such a cool idea and you want it.
Yes, and you just think, that you're expecting to absolutely adore this book, and
that's such a bummer.
It just it says no. Shucks. Never mind.
Now, similar to the question of your influences, but more about their career as a whole. Like, is there an author whose career you admire, that you look to as a good representation of something you would like to do as well?
Yeah, well, I don't really know. As I say, I'm sort of very interested and follow obviously Laura's visual book masters, just from the fact that she started in sci-fi and went to fantasy and had that crossover, and how she managed to cross both genres and be successful in both. I don't think I've ever really followed specific authors. I mean, I love their books and I read them, but I haven't actually gone out and thought, oh, they did X, Y, Z to get to ABC and I want to follow the same route. Obviously, we all want to be the Brandon Sanderson of the world and be able to just let's just get everybody buying my books for me. No problem.
Yeah.
Not that he needs the money, it's like we need the money. but
everybody wants to be the rock star author.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's like what you can learn from them, isn't it? It's like what you can learn from what they do. But they have, for example, he has such a support structure around him that he can just focus on the writing, So.
Yeah, it's
So
that's.
I guess the first thing is to get to be a full-time writer. To be able to get enough.
That's part of the goal is to have the freedom to wake up in the morning, have your cup of coffee, spend a little time with the wife and kids, and then lock a door, sit down, and write.
And just write, and that's your job. Yeah,
and that's your job. Like when I can get to that, where I don't need to leave the house, I don't need to punch a clock. It's gonna be the best. It's gonna be the best.
Yeah. It's just getting to that point where the books will sustain that dream.
Exactly, where like the number of books coming out, the number of people buying those books, the number coming in, the bills, it all has to
work. Yeah.
I have one final question for you. It's the fun one. If you could work on a project with any other author, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, as I was saying, I think Lois McMaster's book, or I always get her name the wrong way around because she's got double barrel, it's always the wrong way around. But I think I just love her books, and again, I like the way she writes those books, that and the imagery and the play on opposites, and the way she managed to pull in so many aspects that resonate, that drive the story, that you don't realize the first time you read it, and each time you read it you see something new. And it's working with somebody like her to understand how you embed that much detail into what you're writing, I think would be amazing, because that just adds enrichment to your books all the time. And hopefully to a degree I do that, but I know I can always get better, and it's having like a mentor like that would be amazing.
That sounds awesome. That's a really good answer. Helen, thank you so much for being with us today for Livestream Sunday and now for Typewriters Podcast. It was my pleasure to have you. This was a delight. You're what we call a content generator. No matter what I shoot at you, you got something for it. I love it. It's the best. You're welcome back anytime. Absolutely. If you want to say one final goodbye to the folks at home and remind them of what it is that you have coming up down the pipeline, just in case they miss Livestream Sunday.
Yeah, sure. No, well, thank you. No, I've been absolutely love being on here. As I said, I can just talk about books forever. And my Sentinel series is out, and I have 4 books and 2 novellas out now. And you can find out details of all my books on helengarraway.com. You can sign up to my newsletter there and download a free copy of Sentinel Stirring, which is a prequel novel or novella, which introduces you to the main characters in Sentinels Awaken, which is the first book. So you can get that for a free download if you sign up to my newsletter. And then I have a Linktree, which is Linktree/Helen Garraway, where you can find all the links to my social media if you'd like to follow me there and follow my journey. And I hope you do, and I hope you open a book and you stay for the adventure. It should be fun. Thank you.
Beautifully said. Thank you so very much for being with us. Folks at home, thank you for watching. Thank you for downloading. If you're listening on the audio only versions, leave 5-star reviews, help the podcast to grow that way. Come back this Sunday, hopefully for Tim Hickson from Hello Future Me. If he needs to reschedule, I will edit this to not say this and say something else. But if I just said this, then see you guys on Sunday for Hello Future Me. That's going to be a lot of fun. And Ms. Garraway, thank you so much. Thank you guys at home. Write on Writers, and we're out.